Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Morgan, and today I'm going to be talking about the Tiger King. I have been rewatching the episodes myself. I've been showing them to my husband. I've been talking about it on all my social medias, and I just feel like I have a lot to say because for some reason, I feel like a connection between me and Joe Exotic. I know that sounds bizarre, like who says that? Now, there was one recent interview given to Andy Cohen by Joe Exotic's husband, Dillon Passage. And you know what? Dillon shared a lot, and I wanted to talk about what Dillon said, and like, let's just talk about Tiger King. Long story short, I do think that Carol is definitely a hypocrite. I definitely think Carol has a past life that she doesn't want people to know about. And our Joey, he wanted to share that with the world. But Joe's a little bit of a hothead, and he's he's country. He's backwoods. You're not talking to somebody who's sophisticated. Do you know what I mean? So I think the way Joe portrayed his hatred to Carol was definitely a little concerning. However, he's he's exotic himself. And I don't think Joe intended to come off as literal as he did. I don't think Jeff Lowe helped. I have a lot of issues with Jeff Lowe. And let's just talk about Dillon's interview, and we'll just share our things. I do think Jeff Lowe is to blame for everything. I don't understand why Jeff Lowe is not in prison. I don't understand why Jeff Lowe is even opening a new zoo. Jeff Lowe had no connection to zoos until he met Joe Exotic. You know what I mean? And he helped financially fund the zoo. And now it's like, before you know it, Jeff Lowe's bringing all his felon friends in, and Joe's getting framed for a murder to hire, or hire to murder to hire, or something like that, whatever it's called. And it's just kind of pisses me off, because it's like, there's Joe having his little feud with Carol. He would go live every night, and they would even say only 80 people at most would attend his live videos, which is like, oh, God love Joe. I understand his pain. I don't think he had pain. I think he was proud of it. Joe was always proud. And just throughout things, I've noticed just little things about the documentary that made me upset, because I saw Joe's character throughout the documentary. I could see that under all of Joe's exoticness, under all of his sequins and curly blonde hair and husbands and tigers and coworkers and arms and legs and chimpanzees, that there was an actual really caring person underneath. And I just think he was misinterpreted, because what I like so much about Joe Exotic is he just kept it real, whether anybody liked it or not. And I know it's easy to say, but if, throughout my life, I've noticed the most outgoing people, the most exuberant people, it's like what you see is what you get with them. There is no secret. You could pretty much, Joe's Joe, but it's the ones who don't put everything out there, such as Carol, and you don't really know her. You don't really know Carol that well. You see Carol, she loves cats. She has a cat rescue, okay? Her husband died or disappeared, and no one knows why. And she loves cats and wearing, that's all you know about Carol. Joe, we know he's gay. We know he likes multiple husbands at once. We know he's a caring person. We know he likes to help people in need and employ people. We know he has passion because he loves his cats. You guys, first of all, I also think Joe Exotic is a very high-functioning human being. I don't think you create a zoo on the level Joe created without being an intelligence and being high-functioning. It literally started with him buying 2 exotic animals or something like that when he was younger, and he created this entire world of tigers. I mean, that was so inspiring. It's now trending over the world. So I don't want to just look past Joe as if he's just a dumb redneck. You know what I'm saying? He's a high functioning human being, and we know a lot about Joe Exotic, but who we don't know about is Carol. Who we don't know about is Jeff Lowe. We know Jeff Lowe has a ton of money. We know Jeff Lowe, but you know what? Does Jeff Lowe have a ton of money? Because he's in debt. He can't even make his Ferrari payments on time, per the documentary. So we just don't know a lot about certain people, and I feel like we know everything about Joe. So he had two husbands. Dillon had passed away. It was very emotional. And then his other husband, who wasn't even gay, which is upsetting, was sleeping with other people around the park, basically making a mockery out of Joe. I mean, that's sad. That was sad to me. Like, that's not funny. Like Joe loved them. Okay, you know what? Dillon Passage is 24, I believe now. When he first started dating Joe, he was 22, and I believe Joe was in his 50s, early 50s. So Dillon has proven to be an actual person that cares for Joe on some type of real level. And I didn't believe that until I listened to the interview he did with Andy Cohen. And you guys, just shout out Andy Cohen. He's hysterical. I freaking love all the Real Housewives, and I just love Andy Cohen. And so does Dillon. That's why he agreed to do the interview with Andy. I mean, come on, Andy's the only one that could really conduct an interview on the level that we all need. You know, Dillon Passage isn't gonna go on CNN or like go talk to Oprah. Like, no, it's gotta be Andy Cohen. So Dillon is still Joe's husband behind bars, okay? I believe John, the ex-husband, or wherever he is, he's apparently not gay and off with somebody else. And Dillon's really he's really sticking by Joe, it seems, and he's really being the crutch that Joe needs to lean on right now. So I do really like Dillon Passage. Let's go over some tips from the interview. During the documentary, after Travis had passed away, his mother came on the screen and was kind of just talking about how fast Joe remarried again to Dillon, which we all can agree on was very extreme. And the mother expressed upset and expressed that she wasn't happy about it, but it just didn't make sense because she went to the wedding for him and Dillon. Now, according to Dillon, during Andy's interview, this is per Dillon. Dillon said that that wasn't true, that she was sad. She was actually very supportive and very happy for Joe. And the only reason why she did that was because she was being persuaded by certain drugs she was addicted to from certain people, cough, cough, Jeff Lowe. Trying again to paint a totally different picture. I'm sure it seemed like Joe loved his husbands and gave them everything he could, including their families. Joe doesn't strike me as somebody who would withhold from a family. He wants to give, you know, because he wants everybody to like him. And he's got a big heart. So that just made me a little upset to find out that behind the scenes, per Dillon, his mother was addicted to drugs and basically persuaded to say the things she said. The other thing about Travis is he was a drug addict prior to meeting Joe Exotic. Now, that's like a big red flag because there's obviously drug issues surrounding Joe Exotic. Joe has even admitted to doing, you know, meth and just some serious drugs. But Dillon claims that he was addicted to prescription narcotics prior to meeting Joe. But when he met Joe, he stopped doing those things. And he said this several times in the interview that he most of the time cared for his baby animals, and that was his way of rehabilitating himself away from drugs. Dillon has says that Joe Exotic never offered him drugs. He's never seen the drugs. All he would do every day was wake up and take care of his baby animals, and that is what Dillon thought he would be doing for the rest of his life. Oh, Dillon did admit, though, to smoking weed and drinking alcohol, and that is the only things that he would do. Okay, so this is a big point that kind of disappointed me, but I did find out that Joe's country songs are not his real voice. Joe, I'm over here speaking your truth, boo, and your country songs weren't your real voice. I love I Saw a Tiger, and I love Here Kitty Kitty. The music video was astonishing. It was life-changing. It was not his real voice. Oh, Dillon does say that he does. Now, Joe was transferred to, it looks like a hospital incarceration facility in Fort Worth, Texas. Right now, I think he's in quarantine for COVID 19 because people in the prisoners in his last detention center or wherever he was did test positive for corona. So right now, our Joey is in, he's not even talking to Dillon. Like, he is away from the public right now. But Dillon does say that when he is able to talk to him and regularly give phone calls, he speaks to him 3 to 5 times a day. So Dillon's still very committed. Dillon did state that Joe is very proud of the documentary. They do like how they were portrayed. They do think their story came out. And Dillon said that Joe is ecstatic about the success of the documentary. He loves fame. The more the merrier. That's never been a secret of Joe. Joe's expressed that. That's not a secret, nothing new. Joe loves fame. Joe loves attention. He views himself as a character. He calls himself the Tiger King, and he just relishes in that. And I respect it. Good for you. You crowned yourself a king, boo, and you keep it like that. He does, so Dillon did state that, oh, by the way, during the interview with Andy, Dillon was sitting in a hammock swinging, talking on the phone. Dillon Passage, baby. He doesn't, he's swinging on a hammock. He doesn't care. You know what I'm saying? Andy Cohen's eating it up. So Andy did touch on whether Dillon does think Joe was set up. Dillon 100% thinks that he was set up. That Joe was set up. He's like, Jeff Lowe even admits it. It's not even a question at this point in their world. It's 100% facts. Like, Jeff Lowe even admits to setting Joe Exotic up. And I feel, this is coming from my mouth, they took his crazy outgoingness and manipulated it into him just blurting something out that may have not been really true. And it's just upsetting because, was he on drugs? There's a scene in Tiger King where you could clearly see, and this was when I knew Joe, I felt genuinely bad for Joe. Like, this is where I felt bad because so first of all, Jeff Lowe filmed everything on the low. They had cell phones, they had cameras everywhere, and it just shows Jeff Lowe. You could clearly tell Jeff Lowe is acting, and they had the phone like on their side, and he's like, you did this, Joe, you did this whole thing. Like, you could tell Jeff Lowe was faking it just to get Joe Exotic's reaction. And Joe was just like, Jeff, like, you could tell he was genuinely like it's, everything's okay, what are you talking about? And Jeff was just screaming at him, and it just made me feel like, yo, this guy's innocent. He doesn't even know what's going on, and you guys are just making this into something it's not. And it just really disturbed me. I do think Jeff was, I really would like to see the case be reheard again with everybody. I think the whole case just needs to start over because there was so many manipulations and you can't even tell what's real and what's not at this point. Like, it's messed up. So Joe does, or Dillon did say that Joe has a best friend and her name was Anne. They talk all the time, and Anna's also very close with Dillon. So, and she didn't work at the park, but she would come over and help every now and then. So that's good to know that Joe has a real friend out there that's trying to help him. Dillon also admitted that Travis really did love Joe. And it was brought up, well, Travis wasn't really gay. But Dillon did say, you know what, sometimes you don't have to be gay to really have strong feelings for somebody. And he did truly believe that Travis deeply loved Joe. And obviously Joe really loved Travis, and it was just a really sad situation. Travis was on a lot of drugs. But I do think in some way, whether it be romantic or not, Travis cared deeply for Joe, because we're sure, aside from the drugs, I'm sure Joe gave him a decent life. Okay, so the other issue was that Andy brought up was, well, how was it like the other boyfriend, John, or was it John, the one that's shirtless with all the nipple rings and the missing teeth? John, Mr. I'm gonna sleep with the secretary, John, baby, your problem. Dillon didn't really like John because, he just felt entitled per Dillon. Dillon said that he would just openly walk in their house all the time. And Dillon just struck me as like a, I don't know, it's like a very calm, kind soul. And I could just see Dillon there like, what's happening? Like, why are you in my house? Like, Dillon wasn't involved really. Do you know what I'm saying? Dillon was Joe's husband and his sole purpose was to be with Joe and to care for baby animals. And that was it. Okay, so it does show Dillon and Joe going on their first date. And Dillon did clarify that prior to their first date, Joe did hang out with him the night before. They met him at his safari bar. I believe Dillon was with his brother or a friend prior to the limo scene, and Joe sang karaoke to him, and it was like a very special night for them, and they had a connection then. Then the next day was their official date. Dillon said he wasn't aware there was going to be cameras, so when he walked outside, he was like, and Joe basically said not to worry about it, it wasn't a big deal, because at the time, it probably wasn't. They didn't think it was gonna blow up to be like this, but Dillon was okay. Dillon was okay with it. Like, Dillon actually was into it. And Dillon did admit to liking older men. So, here we go. I just feel some authenticity in the relationship. That's why I like Dillon Passage. You know, whether it was, there's some authentic feeling, and that's what I care about. So bottom line, Dillon said during the interview that Joe is at his core a very nice guy and caring person. And I think I'm with Dillon on this. Dillon seems like, as Andy even said, a very kind, sweet soul. Now, Andy did get into some like personal, like sexual questions that I'm just gonna briefly go over because this is kind of like, it's funny, but it's not it's like not something that I'm, you know, like, I don't know. So Andy did get Dillon to confirm that Joe is all over the place. Joe was a top and a bottom, and so was Dillon, and Joe acted in bed as how he acted on the Tiger Park, okay, you guys? And that was it. Joe did possess a, girl, what the heck is it even called? I don't even know. Oh. So they kept talking about Joe's Prince Albert, and it's like, I'm assuming it's like, it's a piercing at the tip of certain things, and Joe did describe it as the size of a padlock, but Dillon, like, I cringe, girl, it's so cringy. Dillon said it did exist, it wasn't that big, and he did remove it prior to things getting a little heated. Dillon said his first reaction to that was like, what the fuck? Like, Dillon was shook, and I was like, poor Dillon, boo. But you know what, shout out Dillon Passage. You stuck by I'm gonna do another video on just other topics because there's so much to cover, but I wanted to talk about Dillon's interview because that one really inspired me last night, and I just thought, you know what, this is the first authentic, decent piece of media that I've seen for Joe Exotic. So you guys, I'm gonna do some more. I'm gonna talk about a little bit about Carol in another video, and then I think all cameras at this point need to be pointed at Jeff Lowe, to be honest with you, because that's ultimately what, okay, guys, tune in for the next one. I hope this was entertaining for you. Shout out Joe Exotic and Dillon Passage. Shout out Joseph Maldonado Passage. Bye.